for home, cruising on a 2.5 length lead. Lakeway's in a full-out drive, but gaining no ground. And Serena's Song struggling back in third. It's a big break back to the rest of the field. Inside Information, turning it into a runaway. Mike Smith asked her for a run, and in an instant, the response was devastating. Inside Information. Oh, look at this! A colossal victory! And Heavenly Prize, her stablemate, will be second. Inside Information won by a dozen lengths. Heavenly Prize came on to be second, and Lakeway was third.
Saturdays are made for thoroughbred racing, and on this Saturday here at Gulfstream Park, we pay tribute to one of the greatest race mares of all time, the mighty Inside Information. Keisha Courtney, Jason Blewett alongside the 39th running of the Inside Information highlights today's 13-race card. Trained by Shug McGahee, ridden to victory in that 95 BC distaff by Hall of Famer Mike Smith.
It was pretty incredible. I was 3 at the time, but even just looking back, and I've seen that plenty of times, just an absolutely incredible mare. And she won at Gulfstream as well. She won the Bonnie Miss right here. So pretty exciting to see a race named in her honor. And we do have a very good crew assembled, including Jordan Tenney, who will try to make it 2 in a row after her big upset win in the Hurricane Birdie.
Paid $129 on that Pegasus January 27th undercard here at Gulfstream Park. Now before, and there's a lot to discuss and get into with Saturday and the weekend here at Gulfstream, we have to, of course, take a little step back to Friday's card with the Beat the Expert, and it helps when you've got a bevy of $5 and $6 winners. Got to be honest about that, but I'm happy to take the weekly title here.
Hey, congratulations! Hats off to you for sure. No winners, but we love you playing. So thanks to everybody that joined in this week. I'll be up next week, so you probably have a good shot at getting to polo next week, because I do seem to have that Beat the Expert curse, but it's a lot of fun.
All right, sounds good. A lot of fun there. As speaking of fun, we have 13 races, the old St. Paddy's Day Baker's Dozen here at Gulfstream Park. And for many of us here at Gulfstream Park, on track that is, the day has started earlier than usual for good reason. We have got the deepest jockey colony in the nation. And look at that, our all-star jockeys currently signing those Gulfstream Park jockey posters for the 2017 and 2018 championship
And
meet.
I see Julian Leperoux sporting some St. Paddy's Day flair, as well as the Clerk of Scales Victor Sanchez in the green. Always stylish, as always. And we have such a great colony here at Gulfstream Park. It's a free event, so come on out. You'll also be able to get unsigned posters in the breezeway from 12 to 3, but the actual signing event goes from 10:30 to 11:30.
And I just love how accessible the riders here at Gulfstream Park are. I mean, they really get it. All of them have no egos, really great attitudes, and good to see that line already forming for those jockey signatures as this Saturday card gets underway. And racing on this St. Paddy's Day, again, we've got the 13 races, fast and firm conditions, another perfect day in the weather department, and a little rundown here at the top of the show as Florida Breds ring in the first race on the program with that opening super high five in race number 1, a 5-furlong sprint over the firm turf course. And of course, that is the opening leg of the 50-cent early pick 5. Not 1, not 2, but a proverbial trifecta of pick 4s today.
The very popular middle pick 4 starts in race number 6 this afternoon. And then we do hit a big crescendo with that Rainbow 6. It's still going, folks. $3.4 million. It starts in race number 8 today. Big carryover. Come on out and take a stab. It does include the inside information in that sequence. And then we wrap things up the 50-cent late pick 5.
Yeah, we go full circle, anchored, of course, by the 39th running of the Grade 2 Inside Information. As, yeah, I'm excited about the Saturday action. I know you are as well. And let's do it here at Gulfstream Park. In fact, without further ado, we'll get into the opening leg of the early pick 5 for 50 cents. And what are you doing here?
All right, well, I found a single in the early pick 5, hopefully trying to pad that bankroll for the big Rainbow 6 carryover later on today. I'm using 3 horses in race number 1. I think it could potentially be a quick pace. I do like My Taiwan On, picking up Javier Castellano with a great name for trainer Jane Sibeli. I'm going to single in race number 2. I just think Y'all meets the right spot, and she's been knocking on the door in her last couple. First off the claim for Saffie Joseph Jr. Maybe just some slight changes are what she needs to take that big step forward. And that helps me being able to spread in race number 3. I wanted a lot of coverage in that field as there are a lot of questions to be answered in the third race this afternoon. Using 2 horses in race number 4. Races 4 and 5, really that comment goes for both of these races. A tough group, really likable crew, some older horses and geldings that are going to be toughing it out.
All right, 3.4 million plus down the line in the Rainbow Six, but again, can't get up to that without getting involved in that 50-cent early pick 5. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, Florida breds not only start the early pick 5, they also kick off the opening dollar rolling super high 5, and they will meet at 5 furlongs in the first race today. Older Florida breds, in fact, in this allowance optional claimer. And for me, it was a case of preferring in terms of, I think, overall recent ability. Your top pick, the number 6, My Tie One On. Great name, by the way, with trainer Jane Sabelli. Certainly on the St. Patty's Day as well, and Javier Castellano riding. The question becomes, can this horse successfully cut back to this very specialized and niche 5/8?
I think he can. He went the 5/8 at Parks and obviously hasn't run the 5/8 at Gulfstream before, but I do think that he has the ability to go this distance. In fact, I really always preferred him going a little bit shorter than the 2-turn races that he's been running recently, which he has been running well in. I think picking up Javier Castellano, even the turn back in distance, the way that this horse has been working, and I think he's got the good ability to rate just off the pace.
Yeah, and again, I wanted to pick him because I think he's currently the best horse in here, and he's in slightly better form than the 3 Starship Wildcat. But what won me over is Starship Wildcat is way more of a tried and true, regular, consistent 5/8 horse. And I know lately he's been a little inconsistent, and you might argue he's not in the form that he was, say, last spring and summer here at Gulfstream, but he's been just tangling with some hard hitters at this, again, very niche-like turf distance.
He's had 38 starts at the distance, 10 wins, 11 seconds, and 3/3. So a specialist is definitely a good way to phrase it.
All right, let's move on to race number 2. Fast Main Track awaits. Opening dirt race on the card is a 3-year-old filly, $25,000 maiden claimer. As we go with a field of 8, you can take out the 1 Exonerated Rule. And in this upcoming second race, I see you and I have the cold 5-4 exacta y'all off the claim for Safi for us on top.
Yeah, I was just thinking that this is going to be the right spot for this filly. I've liked her for quite a few starts. Of course, she had a great conditioner before with Roger Atfield. But first off the claim for Safi, who does a really good job of spotting his horses. The blinkers do go back on. The race 2 starts back was on the turf. You can cross that one out. And 3 back was just against way tougher. So I think the blinkers on, the way that she's been working as well, and she just meets the right spot. Tis Priceless would look to be the other interesting horse as a firster, but trainer John Kimmel, first-time starters and maiden claimers, just 1 for 11 in the past 5 years.
Not really his game. We'll see. She's a filly by Tisway. My knee-jerk reaction to seeing her pedigree, and clearly if she can run it all in the dirt, she's going to be a major factor in this lower-level maiden claimer. But again, my initial reaction was, ooh, I might want to bet her back if she does second time out run on the turf.
I thought so, too.
Yeah, no kidding. Little Tisway and more than ready as Erod rides for trainer John Kimmel. Race number 3. Speaking of the turf, we're back on the grass with this $20,000 maiden claiming race at a Mayuna 16th. In fact, these are 3-year-olds, and we do go with a field of 8 on a card with very few changes, scratches, and late defections. And for me, I prefer the 7 Amplify in a narrow vote. This is a very difficult race, and if my memory's correct, you used 4 here, right?
I did, and looking at our picks, and we've got the same 4 horses just boxed up in here, and it's just that kind of race. You know, this is a race where all of these horses really have to prove a lot today. You've got Amplify, who's second time out, taking a drop. He never really got into the race at all first time out, but second time out for Alan Goldberg. I'm going to give the Robert one more try. I just think on the drop in class again, he's a really big point of entry colt. He's got so much size to him, and sometimes horses with a size like that kind of get in their own way, especially on the turf, and I think that he's just kind of taken some time to figure it out. And if you remember that race won by Shanatova, horses just came flying late, and he never really got underneath of him. himself. So drop in class, I think, should help, and Javier is going to ride. And apparently off my picks, I'm hoping Javier has a really big day.
And you can get his autograph, in fact, right behind us. Javier, one of many top riders currently signing their John Hancock with the free, I might add, Gulfstream Park poster giveaway here at Gulfstream Park. But again, I prefer Amplify, who does run second time out off just the right kind of, I think, building block debut where this horse didn't really get bet. They make a rider change. I'll take Amplify here in race number 3. But a tricky race, no doubt. 3 deep into this early pick 5. And the sequence does continue with race 4 as we are back on the main with the 7 furlong older $6,250 claimer. And trainer Jose Jimenez, who I'm not that familiar with, seems to have just found a pretty good spot off the claim with the one Amase, who, if this horse runs even remotely close to his last few, for previous trainer Jorge Navarro, this was probably going to be really tough at a pretty short price.
Yes, I think so too. And we haven't seen that many starters from trainer Jose Jimenez, but more well known in Latin America. First off the claim with the winner last time out, and I know that it's tough to claim off of Jorge Navarro, but I agree with you. I think that the trainer finds a good spot for this horse, who was so good last time, and he's just about as tough as they come too. He's really a very solid horse. He broke badly 2 starts back. I think he gets a good gate rider in Edgar Zayas to ride him today. And my thinking with this race is that Cox in the number 4 will probably be the main speed with Ray Luke Gutierrez aboard. But this horse, who was so good throughout the summer and fall, just seems to have kind of tailed off a little bit.
Yeah, it's just the ebb and flow.
Exactly.
These horses are flesh, tendon, and bone, and they're not machines. And in the case of Coxon, he was just a wind machine heading into the fall at Gulfstream Park West, and a combination of going up in class and just also losing that sharp form that he had. You're now dealing with a horse who might slowly be on the descent, whereas Amase, even though it's no longer Jorge Navarro, may just be fastest in here at this point in time on this St. Patty's Day at Gulfstream Park. 5th race on the day, we're up in class with the $16,000 older claimer on the turf at 7.5 furlongs. Pretty good race as we go with a field of 8, and there's a number of different ways to go, although, to be fair, I think you and I have the right 4, at least the logical looking 4, on paper boxed up, and the plot really does thicken here to a great extent with our top pick, who we're going to look at nearly 50 days ago in the 8 performance bonus, who got the typical, I'd say, turf ride, chilly, cool, calm, collected from Tyler Gaffleo. No panic, even though he was a big favorite and had to wait and find some room. He kept this horse covered up. He starts to commence that rally, angling out 4 wide or so. And performance bonus showed some guts and showed some resolve, gutting out the victory over ours again, as they will eventually swoop past the 2 inside horses. I say the plot thickens because this horse's last race will put him squarely in the thick of things. It's tough to claim off Chad Brown. We saw that yesterday, in fact, yet again with Peace Front, who didn't run great, didn't run terrible midway through the card. But Jason Service just does such an amazing job with these turf runners off the claim. Maybe that'll take some of the starch about the difficulty in claiming off Chad.
Well, we'll show you a stat on Jason Service. And yes, claiming off Chad Brown is not an easy thing to do, but first off the claim with winners last time out, he's nearly 50%, and this is just another great barn. And I don't know if it's going to be such a case of, well, he's going to move this horse up, but he does a phenomenal job, as this stat shows, of keeping horses that are already in good form, keeping that form going, which sometimes is just as difficult, and there's an ROI of more than $3. I think that it's good that he keeps him at this comparable level and going to be able to keep that good form that he's already in. So that stat really won me over, and kind of any hesitation I had about it. I used the number 2 Majev in second, just because this horse for Dave Fox, second off the claim, he's one of these horses that just kind of always tries, no matter where he is. He always runs to his competition.
And Edgar Zayas, who you had pointed out, among the many top riders here at Gulfstream Park, currently signing autographs right behind us in the walking ring, has picked up the mount for Luis Saez. Obviously, Luis been number 1 here from the day he arrived back in early December. But if you're wondering where Luis is today at Gulfstream, he's riding for Todd ride Pletcher at Oaklawn Park in the Rebel on a horse I think we're both big fans of in Magna Moon.
Yes, he'll be out of town. John Velasquez as well. Tyler Gaffalione. Several jockeys out of town to ride elsewhere this weekend, but don't worry, they'll be back soon.
Indeed they will, and there's plenty of racing to go around. Just 2 weeks out, by the way, to the $1 million ExpressBet.com Florida Derby. As we move on to race number 6 today, we go 5.5 on the main. Big field of 3-year-old filly claimers going this short distance on the dirt in this $12,500 maiden claimer. In fact, we have a group of 11, and for me, as I looked around, I almost pulled the trigger on the first there that you picked in the number 9, Miss Jack for Top Connections and Gilberto Zerpa and Amicia Jaramillo. But I was just thinking, speaking of being somewhat optimistic, the number 7 horse, you've got to be very much optimistic if you think this horse, for whatever the reason, had a major excuse last time out for Armando de la Cerda, because the race prior will put him right there at the wire.
Yes, I think her last race was just too bad to be true.
Me
And
too.
watching that back a few times, Amicia Jaramillo kind of sat in the saddle a couple times coming out of the gate. He didn't really feel like he had a horse underneath of her. I don't think that she really got into the bit. She never really got involved in the race. 2 starts back, even though she was third, she was beaten just by 3/4 of a length and behind 2 next out winners. So that is really what I think is going to be the key for her. Armando's Barn has continued to go very well, but I did take a stab with the first. Her kind of pedestrian work tab at Gulfstream Park West, but she does debut for the 12.5. She is out of a mare that was great at stakes play, so be kind of interesting to see what we get from her. 3 winning siblings, and here is a stat that I just thought was interesting. With Gilberto Zerpa, first-time starters with Amicia Jaramillo up. Now, do note Jaramillo rode somewhat optimistic in the last 2, but when Gilberto reaches out for Jaramillo, they've had a tremendous amount of success together. I know this is an angle that you're always looking at too, so I said, well, let me look and see, and the stat really backs it up too.
Indeed it does, and keep in mind, wasn't a firster yesterday, it was a second-time starter making her turf debut, but they had a well-bet winner in yesterday, the Friday opener, horse by the name of Bird of Peace, who paid about $650 to win. Good connections there. We'll see how they do in race number 6 with that gemologist filly. Moving on to race number 7, ever so close to this big Rainbow 6, but we'll get out of the way. These 3 lifetime 6250 claimers on the dirt, in which, as I worked my way through this field, not in love with the 5 Night Rhythm at what figures to be a shorter price than what this gelding by Cowtown Cat has gone off at recently, because he's been bettable prices in his last handful of races. The Cat, though, in a race like this, I think is very much out of the bag, where what won me over, and I gave him major points, he just seems to be, as of late, he just seems to be the most reliable in the field.
He's very consistent. He really is. He got the non-winners of 2 back at the end of January, second time off the claim for Jorge Delgado. He's been knocking on the door, finishing second in his last 2. I took a stab with the number 2 Woodburn, who is first off the claim for Alexis Cordero Lopez, and he's turning back in distance, and his recent form certainly has been dirtied up. He's not been in the best form lately, but I remember him back last year in the spring and the summer. I always preferred him going shorter than a mile, and I know that he won going a mile, but his race back in April, I remember watching that at 12-1 and thinking like I really wanted to bet him next time. So the turn back in distance is actually what I like about it.
All right, he'll go from post 2 with Roberto Alvarado Jr. as there's a Robbie Alvarado in town today riding the 8 Hail to Victory, who wheels around relatively quickly off a claim for Luch and Anthony Cordarolo, getting the blinkers on in a major with Peace and Love rider upgrade on the 8 Hail to Victory, as we hope we'll be saying victory when it's all said and done. Rainbow 6, 39th Inside Information coming your way after this.
Pennsylvania, proud of our growing breeding and racing industry. Tens of thousands of jobs with a massive economic impact. Now, North America's most lucrative awards program will pay a 50% breeder award for PA-sired, PA-bred maidens who run first, second, or third, with 25% for non-PA-sired PA-breds. Plus, up to 40% in owner bonuses, 400-plus restricted races, and our program has paid out $30 million for the 6th straight year. Breeding and racing in Pennsylvania. It's a winner.
Saturday, March 31st at Gulfstream Park. Be here as the country's top 3-year-old thoroughbreds compete for glory in the 67th running of the ExpressBet.com Florida Derby. Experience this epic day of live racing with over $2.5 million at stake. Admission and parking absolutely free. Men and women, come dressed in your Derby best and win fabulous prizes. Visit GulfstreamPark.com for details. The ExpressBet.com Florida Derby. Witness the crowning of a champion. Welcome to your playground, Gulfstream Park.
14 days out, hard to believe, from that Florida Derby card. And that man, Julian Leparoux, might just be in action on that day. So many stakes to go around. A former Eclipse Award-winning rider and a Hall of Fame jockey. And Javier Castellano's got the West Silks on. We think of West Coast. And again, for my money, Acacia, day in and day out, and this signing is currently ongoing in the paddock here at Gulfstream Park. We have the deepest colony in the country.
We really do, and it's a great group as well. So don't forget, you've still got a few more minutes. It goes until 11:30, and of course, Clerk of Scales, always fashionable, the one, the only Victor Sanchez down there as well. Such a great group as well. You can come down, free event, get your poster signed by all of our fantastic jockeys, and you will be able to get unsigned posters until 3 p.m. in the breezeway.
Sounds good. I see Edgar Zayas in the black there. There we go, with a big smile. Look, Mom, I'm on TV. Good stuff there with the riders giving back, and they take care of their own here at Gulfstream, which we certainly appreciate. So again, we want to take care of this Rainbow Six.
That's right.
A nice tidy score on this third to last Saturday of the meet here at Gulfstream Park. So what are we doing?
All right, well, may the luck of the Irish be with you today on St. Patrick's Day. Not an easy sequence for sure. I'm Irish. Are you Irish?
Do I need
to say?
Look at these. Are you kidding? I didn't wear green. I said I got about 8 trillion freckles on me. So yes.
That's enough. That's enough, right? So yeah. We're Irish. We're wishing you the best of luck. I'm using 4 deep in race number 8 to start things off. Really fun way to start off the sequence. So keep an eye on the board as well. You've got some very strong maidens. I'm going to go with just 2 horses. Can't Catch the Rax, who was beaten at short prices in her last 2. And I like the number 9, Mistress of the Dark, on the outside for Phil Serpy. Going with 3 horses in race number 10, another good maiden race in the sequence. And race 11 is our grade 2 inside information. We're going to see if Jordan Tenney can make it 2 in a row, but I'm using 3 horses in there. She will have, I think, a couple of tough foes to deal with. 2 deep in race number 12, a starter allowance, and then we wrap things up with a claiming event on the turf, just a wide open race, and I might be a bit light in there, but just using tracking stock and Fuel the Burn.
Fuel the Burn, who's got some speed, and trainer Danny Garkin, who's had a good run of things as he rebuilds his public stable here at Gulfstream Park. He will send out Fuel the Burn in today's upcoming 13th race, but again, the final piece of this $3.5 million plus Rainbow Six puzzle. So we begin anew in race number 8 this afternoon, and this is a very good race we have on tap.
It really is, and you've got a couple of horses that do have some experience already. Candy Graham, who I think it was a really educational debut for him last time out, and Scrapper, who we haven't seen since June, but boy, did he run a good race.
He did, and we'll go back to that race back on the 1st of June. So long ago, Taprit was about a week away from the Belmont Stakes victory for trainer Todd Pletcher, who sends out this pricey colt by Orb, who played out as the inside speed, hounded just about every step of the way. Now, normally you'd go, and I know this race was a while ago, but you go, you know, 4 to 5, Gulfstream Park, June 1st, Pletcher firster, cost over 600 large, but the horse that beat him, Diamond Oops, obviously has gone on to be a pretty legitimate stakes winner for trainer Patrick Biancone.
Multiple stakes winner. In fact, his next out win after this race was a victory with a 79 Beyer speed figure. Blinkers do go on off the layoff, and I found a stat on Todd Pletcher, and I know we show a lot of Todd Pletcher stats, but this one was interesting to me. With a layoff of more than 180 days on the dirt with maiden special weight, it's not a huge sample size, and you just kind of keep looking, and you're like, wow, he's really good at everything. 36% win, more than 62% of the time in the money, and I like that it's still a positive ROI. Candy Graham, I'm a big fan of this horse. I'm a big fan of the name and of the trainer. He did get a bit keyed up last time, so again, that's why I think it was educational.
And a very taxing trip.
Yes.
Blasted away as that inside speed and just hounded, much like Scrapper. I mean, this horse had to do it in a tougher field, going that demanding 7/8, and I'm wondering if this is just classic Jimmy Jerkins, who's been on a good run, and his horses have continued to show up with their A+ efforts, it seems, day after day, with 6 wins wins from only 21 starters. I'm going to take Candy Graham. I'm also curious to see what the Godolphin firster does for trainer Keir McLaughlin and the number 4 First Commander, who went for almost $500,000 as a weanling. And digging a little, and we'll bring up the Blue It's Bullets, this son of Medaglia d'Oro, who stands for $250,000 a pop, is out of a Grade 1 winner in Emma's Encore. This is her first fall. She was the last graded stakes victory and certainly the final Grade 1 winner, trained by the legendary H. Allen Jerkins when she upset the Victory Ride at 39-1 and then went on to win the Grade 1 Prioress at Saratoga back in 2012.
Pretty cool. This is a really deep race, and you've got some great barns present. You've got Shug McGahee in the Phipps stable with Fast Talking. I was intrigued by the number 7. Hit Me With Your Best Shot, a first-time starter for Jason Service. Also out of a graded stakes place mare who was pretty good on the dirt and has already produced 2 winning foals.
And Chad's got a firster by Into Mischief on the rail, cost $575,000. The first foal out of an unraised dam has got a tremendously strong female family.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks like it could be a very live race with some up-and-coming 3-year-olds in the 8th today. As we turn the page, we're on to Saturdays. We'll call this the very late pick 5 because it gets underway in race 9 after all. These are 3 and up filly and mare, 2 lifetime claimers in the opening leg, and I prefer the 2 inside horses. I should have probably included your top pick on this late pick 5, the Serpy horse, who's in off a trainer change coming from the west coast of Florida, but I love that chalk. What can I say? Can't catch the racks, and a lead air from the 2 inside posts for me to kick off this late pick 5. I will go 3 deep in race 10. That is almost the 3-year-old turf counterpart to the race we talked about. The 8th and 10th today, Acacia, look like they could really be filled to the brim by maybe future stakes winners.
Well, that's one of the greatest things about the Gulfstream Championship meet and those maiden races. You never know where those horses are going to end up.
Definitely. And now in the 11th race, I don't like the rail for Ivy Bell. First time tap. This just seems, first time plecture that is, off a private buy. Just seems like this is a horse that Todd is going to do really well with, especially here at Gulfstream Park when we get at times big efforts out of his horses, and then a nice 3-horse spread for me to wrap things up in 2 very competitive turf races in races 12 and 13. So we begin. Can't Catch the Racks on the rail, Elite Air, both make a lot of sense. And if you're looking again for that 3rd horse, if you like the 2 inside runners like I do, clearly the 9 Mistress of the Dark is the other one.
Well, I thought on the drop, and it is a trainer change, as you mentioned, to trainer Phil Serpy. And the fact that she picks up Irad Ortiz coming to South Florida as well. She's been training solidly here at Gulfstream. I like her getting back on the turf. She's got some speed with the outside post. As much as I like Can't Catch the Racks, I just can't take her at that 6-5 morning line price the way she was beaten in the last 2.
Just didn't seem to get out of first gear at 1-2 last time out, and obviously suffered that narrow defeat 2-back against Take a Stroll. I like the little layoff here with the number 2 Elite Air. The fact that she's been able to take a bit of a breather, and her races against a field like this going 5 on the turf look pretty good to me, and I'm going to take her with Miguel Vasquez, who was a part of that jockey signing. Let's move on to race number 10. 10th race on the day is that aforementioned 3-year-old maiden turf race, and it looks like a good one at 7.5 furlongs. You probably have, I think, to be fair, the starting point, no matter who you like here, but the starting point is probably the 6 Solid, who's got to, I like him stretching out, but he's got to deliver a knockout punch one of these days.
He really does. His race 2 starts back was solid against Fast Boat. He lived up to his name. And last time he did go as a favorite, even with the outside post. And I remember talking to Kieran McLaughlin before that race, and he said, you know, he ran well sprinting up at Belmont in the fall. We really would have preferred a 7.5 furlong race, but he was ready and they wanted to race him, so they went for the 5/8. So I took that to mean, and even looking at him, the stretch out to the 2 turns is really what they want for him, and I think this is the right spot for him. So I'm hoping he's going to take a step forward and he doesn't have to deal with the outside post that he did last time.
All right, Colt by Smart Strike makes a lot of sense for Kieran, but he may have a really live second-time starter for the Ramseys and trainer Mike Maker in the form of the number 2 Sniper Kitten, who, if you want to talk about, or at least take a look at, the most intriguing last out quote-unquote trip in this race, he was the one who got really skunked and stymied. Now, things worked out great up to this point beneath Erod Ortiz Jr. This horse got bet at 5-1, sat the pocket up close inside. Now, Erod starts to ask this horse for run, wants to get outside, but a really cagey ride, I thought, on the number 4 Funny Duck, who was the 3-2 favorite. Edgar Zayas, who was on the rail in the orange cap, comes out a bit. Funny Duck closes that hole, and obviously there was nowhere to go for the number 2 Sniper Kitten, who still stayed on and finished up like he's a horse that has a little bit of ability.
Oh, I do think he has ability for sure, and I'm really intrigued what we're going to get from him today. And I was looking up stats because, to be honest, I actually expected this to be a positive stat, and we'll show this. It is just some food for thought. I saw it and was surprised. This takes nothing away of how much of a fan I am of trainer Mike Maker, but in the past 5 years, second-time starters on the turf at Gulfstream, 1 for 22. I was amazed by this stat. So maybe this is a horse that's going to be an outlier. Maybe he's going to need another race, but we wanted to give the public all the information that's out there.
Absolutely. I mean, knowledge is power in this game, and you need to decide for yourself. And almost a potential in this crazy game of horse racing double whammy is the fact, and I admit it, this is the master of the obvious, last out tough trip horse. He's going to be overbet this afternoon just because of the traffic that we just showed. Barkley Tag's got a first there, and didn't get lucky with Coolin' Rock, who seemed, I thought 7.5 might really hit him between the eyes, and in the end, maybe it was a touch short for him. He finished up pretty gamely in yesterday's last. I do love these Bonner Young homebreds, and Barkley Tag has trained generation after generation, and that's one of the things I like so much about all of her broodmares. But we do have some bullets on the 3 Blacksburg, the first-time starter with Edgar Zayas riding, and if you're looking for the firster that's got the big pedigree, you look no further than this gelding by Ghost Zapper, who's out of a dam, who won over $500,000, winning 4 times on the turf. She's already foaled, well, three winners, but 2 of them, including Carolyn Thomas, very, very classy and talented on the turf. And a case of Barkley knowing this family probably like the back of his hand. He knows all their idiosyncrasies, and I'm hoping Blacksburg shows up with a good effort today.
I like that too. I like when a trainer has familiarity with the family for sure. And as you say, Carolyn Thomas was just so good. She was grade 1 place. There's another stakes winner in My Sweet Girl. I really like this race quite a bit, and I like how you phrased it as the turf version of the dirt race we see earlier on.
Yeah, those 3-0 maiden races, dirt and turf, they look really good today, and anxious to see what happens in those races, as we're excited too about the 39th running of the Inside Information. Really don't miss a beat here late in the card, as we have one good race after another, and this grade 2 stake for older fillies and mares pays tribute to the late Inside Information, who's a Hall of Fame enshrined mare, and she passed away last year at the age of 26 in late October. She had just a wonderful career, winning 14 of 17 races, and pretty good field assembled here. And you and I both like the one Ivy Bell, who may have timed it right. I think this is a really good spot to see what she's made her first time out for Todd.
And you brought it up. The fact that she has to deal with the rail going the 7/8 is not ideal, but she does have a good record at this distance. She's been running the 6 furlongs here lately. She does have some back class too. First time for Todd. Comes out of a very good race at Laurel, won by Miss Locust Point, who's just a win machine. I mean, she is really incredible. And this mare rather, didn't break well that time either. She is paddock schooled twice, and speaking to Todd's assistant Anthony, he said she got a bit keyed up the first time, wanted to bring her back again just to get aware of her surroundings. And looking at her, I thought the 7 furlongs would be perfect for her. But poor Jordan's Henny, she had such a big win last time out at such a big price, and she is just one of those fillies that is always a big price.
And was so determined last time out. A combination, again, of Tyler Gaffalione, and we'll look at her upset $129 payoff victory here on Pegasus Day, January 27th in the Hurricane Birdie. Now, she will commence her rally pretty much alongside Rich Mommy. They were closing together and closing stoutly on the outside, and she had to show this Jordan's Henny. This was not a race handed to her on a silver platter. She had to show some poise and some guts there, kind of forcing her way right outside Curlin's approval, and is able to just to find that very slim seam, and she's up in time over a game Curlin's approval. And Rich Mommy ran big too from way off the pace.
She really did, and Rich Mommy is normally a speed type, so to see that she has shown that other dimension and being able to come from off the pace, Victor Barbosa's done a fantastic job with her, moving her up. And Jordan's Henny, I do like that she is consistently, looking at her by her speed figures. She's continued to go up. I think that they tried her going a bit longer. The 7 furlongs is the perfect spot for her. And speaking to trainer Mike Tomlinson, he said she always runs well fresh. So she is coming off of a bit of a freshening since that Pegasus day. She too did paddock school twice, so she is the filly that normally does get a bit aggressive before the race.
And you'll hear from trainer Mike Tomlinson a bit later on this edition of Gulfstream Today, shortly before the 39th running of the Inside Information. So 3 out of the Hurricane Birdie, plus the first-time Pletcher mare on the rail in Ivy Bell. As we have a couple of turf races, and that's where we're at for the remainder of this St. Paddy's Day card at Gulfstream Park in races 12 and 13, 8.5 furlongs on the grass with this 50K starter allowance. I don't really love the post with the number 10, Your Only Man, who's run obviously very well in this country for Todd Pletcher. I just like it's the Pletcher Javier factor, and it's the fact that this horse has really found a groove this meet in the States for the barn. But he's going to have to work out a trip, as will the number 12, Uncle Gio, who's seemingly been right there in some really wicked stretch battles in his last 3 for trainer Michelle Nevin.
He has been, and Uncle Gio has been running big distance races as well. His last win came at 1 mile and 3/16, and it seems like Michelle Nevin has really figured this horse out too, and put him in the right spot. So he's got to work out a trip. I think Your Only Man is the one to beat. So I got a little bit creative. The number 6, Trouble in Phoenix, I think has run well in his last 2. His win 2 starts back. Last time, first off the claim from Marcus Vitale, he stepped him up in class to the starter allowance, and he ran a heck of a race behind Bold Daddy, and he took money that day too.
All right, he right on the turf at what could be an okay price there in race number 12. That was the race I really struggle with. That might just be the best race in terms of wagering on the card today. Race number 13 closes things down. We end on a 2 lifetime 16K claiming note at 7.5 furlongs, and for the most part, I gave the narrow nod to the number 2 Tracking Stock. Good post, respectable race last time out, and I just like that cruising speed where this horse can basically get in that first flight, rate, and pull his own trip.
And he had a tough time. He was carried out last time out, but it was a race that produced 3 next out winners, so that's definitely encouraging. I like him as well. I went with Fuel the Burn on the drop in class. They're just going to cut his tag in half, and he showed a lot of speed last time out, so I'm curious what he's going to do today. But as you said, Danny Gargan, with a smaller amount of starters, has had a really great meet.
As has Peter Walder, just looking at this week alone.
3 wins the other day,
3 wins on Thursday afternoon. You wonder if the tide has started to turn, and maybe that barn is one to keep an eye on as Peter sends out the 12 Sahara Storm from the outside in race number 13. As we take a little breather on this edition of Gulfstream Today, your man, Pete Aiello. So get those pens and pencils ready. He's up right here next with Scratches and Changes.